Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Friday, and it is October the 3rd. We used to do Friendly Fridays not so long ago. We had our buddy Steve Friend, who has now been co-opted and rolled back into the FBI. And he's no longer a voice for sanity out here in the public with me, so that's kind of a shame. Some of you guys were hoping that he might be here. You know, he's not getting paid. He's not getting put back into the job yet. Says a lot about what our FBI is willing to do. Says a lot about what our government's willing to do. I'm sure the shutdown will be another excuse for them to take their time. I think that's already come out to my boys, but I'll keep you updated because we're not letting that story go. We do have some funny FBI news. Actually, one of the funnier ones. I'll give credit where it's due. It's actually quite amusing. So stick around for just a couple minutes. That'll be the first thing I get into today. I want to get into something that's been really weighing on me, and it's maybe weighing on you too, which you didn't realize. Today's show episode title is potentially a little bit provocative, the idea of digital discipleship. I always end up having reflections and thoughts on whatever it is that I'm consuming, both in media and in social media. And what I'm consuming right now on the media side, entertainment side, is that my wife has looped me in to watching The Chosen. I think we're in the second season at this point. And so it's an artistic representation, and it is a actor's portrayal of Jesus Christ and his time on earth, walking around as a man and really humanizing the things and the stories. You know, you read a story in the gospel, maybe you're not even a Christian, but you've read these stories as his sort of historical perspectives. And when you see it fleshed out by actors, and you realize that he had to be charismatic and charming and funny and interesting for people to follow him because that's what people follow. It made me start thinking about the concept of discipleship. We are currently seeing kind of a turn on that. I think people have always sought out those that were voices that would represent them in public, you know, that says what they want to say in the way that they want to say it. And they go, aha, that's my guy. That's my gal. That person speaks for me. For many people in America right now, Donald Trump is that guy, for better or for worse. Sometimes for worse, if we're being real serious. I think, unfortunately, the term MAGA, for those that are willing to blindly just sub out their attention span and people who are not going to be critical thinkers, they find that MAGA is a stand-in for whatever Donald Trump opinion is today is also my opinion. And I think that's dangerous for a country that's supposed to be full of liberty-minded, free citizens, not subjects, because if you're a subject, you can go with whatever the king says. That's the official position of the country, and the king is England, and therefore, as an Englishman, you back up and follow down on whatever the king says. But I don't like that. I'm a contrarian by nature. I think Americans in our spirit are kind of a contrarian type. We're interested in doing things our own way. And so if you are not a digital disciple of somebody, that means you gotta follow your own path. You have to discern. You have to pray for discernment, and then you have to act in a discerning manner. You have to actually look at all things, evaluate the evidence, and decide for or against any given position that is presented to you. And usually, if you're smart about it, you're going to be open-minded enough to take in new information and change it. I guess a lot of this comes in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death. Last night, I spent about 3 hours and change doing a long-term debunk and debrief on the facts that are available, the things that we think. I was sitting with a former Green Beret on Paramount Tactical. You guys can go check that out. It was a longer form version of what we did in the morning yesterday. And I think it was a useful discussion, and we took some audience questions out of the chat. People kind of splayed their ideas. And what you find is there's a lot of folks that have just kind of subbed out their attention span to fill in the blank internet investigator without any particular reason for that person being a great stand-in. And that's tough. I don't think you should do that. I think that you should evaluate facts and make decisions on a case-by-case basis. But that's just me. I see a lot of folks doing the same thing with Candace Owens. I've seen people do this with Nick Fuentes. I've seen people do this with fill in the blank. Like, you pick a person, Tucker Carlson. Again, Donald Trump is an easy one. Dan Bongino. These cults of personality where people say that voice is so effective that it actually is my voice. You are my voice, and so I don't have to think. And that means that you've really chosen a rabbi. Because as I'm watching this program, The Chosen, I see that that's what Jesus' disciples did. They not only listened to him, they subbed out their attention to him, but then they also represented that they might have known what he was about. They all brought their own biases to it, and they put this lens on it. So if you were a zealot and you were a fighter, then you believed that Jesus was a conquering Messiah and he was going to bring violence and danger. If you were someone who was peaceful and you needed forgiveness, then you thought that he was this man of peace and forgiveness. And he was all those things. And he was also more than all those things. And so we put our kind of projections on people. We expect them to be that. And the reason why digital discipleship is so dangerous, I think, is because when you sub out and stop thinking critically for yourself, that person will inevitably let you down. The reason that it was really effective for this man, Jesus of Nazareth, is because he was God. If you're a Christian, this is what you believe. And any other person's going to let you down. From Donald Trump, the president of the United States, all the way down to the most humble podcast that you can find. An online personality or influencer or whatever it is. I'm going to encourage all the people that listen to me, and there are many of you, and I'm really grateful that you do. I think it's awesome that you guys tune in the mornings or in the afternoons on your drive and you listen to this podcast. I would encourage you to continue to question things that don't make sense, challenge in comments, write your thoughts out there. I read almost all of your comments, and some of them are really insightful, and some of them are just blindly saying what I say, and it feels good. I'm not here to let you down or to pick you up or to tell you how to think. I don't want to do that. I'm telling you what I think. And then you have to decide what makes sense for you. And if you're doing comparisons about, well, how much do I live up to this standard or that standard? Certainly don't live up to my standard, because I'm not going to be the guy to do it. All right. That's what we're going to go with today's show. We're also going to talk about a bunch of fun stuff because there's a government shutdown and I'm still giddy about it. Everything worked this morning. My daughter came down too early. The alarm clock binged at like 5:05 this morning and made a noise for no particular reason. The sun came up. I saw it. The grill was working. The gas was working when we turned on the stove. All the things continued. The federal government is shut down. And in a very, very funny little moment, because we're going to get there towards the end of the show today, people who are young voters that overwhelmingly chose Donald Trump blame the shutdown on Republicans, and they wouldn't have changed their choice back in November knowing what they know right now. And that might be the most important little piece of polling that the left is trying to slant. It's really fun, so we're going to have a lot of fun with that. Before we do, let's talk about government failure and the possibility that you might want to hedge against it. What do we always talk about here? We talk about prepare or repair. You've got a couple of different options, and I would suggest to you that prepare is superior. If you've looked at your energy bill lately, you might have seen that prices are up around the globe, or they've been around the country here. We're just paying more and more. Inflation is still going on. It's not solved because we have Donald Trump. Even worse, power outages are possible everywhere, whether it be because of storm or because of blackout or brownout. The Department of Energy estimates that blackouts could increase by 10,000% over the next couple of years. So if you don't have a backup generator, now's time to do it. There's ways you can do it. You can have fuel-based ones, or you can have something that you can recharge with the sun, like the Grid Doctor 3300 solar generator. It is one that is sitting directly outside of the studio walls here. It's quiet, but not quite quiet enough that I would want to broadcast with it. There's a fan that makes sense, but it doesn't bother me. Unlike a gas generator, it's fume-free. It's absolutely safe to use indoors. You can run a long cable out and put it out in the sun. It's powerful enough to run almost everything in your home. It recharges on its own. If you plug it into these grid panels, which I've got two of them sitting over here on my left, you're going to get free solar panels, and you're going to have unlimited access to outlast any storm or blackout. It's the reason that we're going to be able to continue to broadcast if everything's shut down here. MyPatriotSupply.com/KYLE, MyPatriotSupply.com/Kyle. You're going to get 3,300 watts of backup power. It's actually like not that bad. I think we ended up, once we bought it, it's like a great investment that you can always feel good about. And sometimes I panic and go, what would happen if we didn't have any power? Oh yeah, we can recharge from the sun. Our life will continue on as it has. MyPatriotSupply.com/KYLE. Yeah, I do worry about these kind of things, and I do actually feel really good that I bought this thing. It's one of my more pleasing purchases that we got from My Patriot Supply. Check out, link in the show description. Let's get into today's program right now. And we're doing it. Okay, so I promised you something fun. I got a couple of fun stories. Let's see. We'll start with something funny. I saw this from Ken Delanian on X, I think last night before I went to bed, and I just chuckled, so I figured we'd cover it. I'm not a big Kash Patel fan. You guys know this. Actually, I was driving in my car, my truck, which is a really cool thing that we have. Like I'm really a big fan of this Ford truck that we bought. It's the nicest thing that I've ever had to buy. And I'm driving, and I got my 8-year-old in the back, and we're talking about stuff, and she's got this kind of curious look on her face. And she said, "Dad, did Kash Patel betray you?" And I said, "Yeah, he kind of did." And she said, "Yeah, is he like a traitor that stabbed you in the back?" I went, "Okay, honey, let's have this talk." So I turned off the radio, and we had a long discussion about why we don't particularly care for what's going on in the FBI right now. And that's pretty interesting. And I have a very, very articulate and perceptive 8-year-old daughter. So I'm very blessed with that. Doesn't mean the guy does only bad things. It doesn't mean that everything that he touches turns to poop. And this is actually a really funny story, and MSNBC obviously does not like it. Kash Patel fired an FBI agent trainee for displaying a gay pride flag. Talk about misreading the room. The story itself, when you get into the details, it makes plenty of sense. The FBI director on Wednesday, 2 days ago, fired an agent in training. Turns out actually not an agent in training, as far as I can tell. A future, what they call a NAT, a new agent trainee, but not in actual training, for displaying a gay pride flag on his desk while appointed to a field office in California last year. So it didn't even happen. I guess it's hard to understand. Like, he fired him because a while ago he showed this flag? That's strange. The trainee, who previously worked as an FBI support specialist in Los Angeles, received a letter dated October the 1st, signed by Patel, claiming that he had displayed an improper political message in the workplace during his assignment in California under President Joe Biden. That's a pretty big move for politics in the FBI. I actually don't hate this, by the way. They claimed that I was a problem because I had a Let's Go Brandon t-shirt on that was underneath a jacket. I got a phone call from Washington, D.C. while I was working in the middle of nowhere in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And for those of you who are in New Mexico, you know that that's a real place. But for those of you that have never been to New Mexico, you might not even know that Las Cruces is an American city. My friends in the FBI didn't know that. I got a phone call from Washington, D.C. saying, "Hey, take off that t-shirt or put on something else or put something over it." Like, who cares? By the way, I was just supporting what the president of the United States, Joe Biden, had just said in December. I think he said it on December the 24th. He said, "I agree. Let's go, Brandon." He was the president. He was the boss. He was the executive. So I just wore a "Let's go, Brandon" because the president agreed. The letter cited President Donald Trump's Article 2 powers under the Constitution to dismiss federal agency career personnel, a justification used in several recent firings. Now, the fact is that if you're a new agent, you're likely under a probationary status, which means they can fire you for no reason. It says, quote, "You're being summarily dismissed from your position as a new agent trainee at the FBI Academy at Quantico." This is written kind of like in a shady way. It sounds like maybe this person was a support employee, then was being moved into the agent position. By the way, this is how you get left-leaning agents. You recruit them for non-agent positions, then they get the requisite amount of work experience, and they've only worked for the FBI. This was always the case when I was at the Bureau. Like, you see these people that come in, it's like, "What did you do for a living?" And they're like, "Well, I was an FBI analyst, and then I became a agent." And you're like, "Oh, okay, got it. So you've never had another job. What about you?" "Oh, I was an FBI honors intern, and then I became some other kind of support person, and then I became an FBI agent." And you're like, "Got it. Cool." So when you say it's the best job in the world, it's because you haven't had another job. You just know that it's the best job in the FBI, which is true. So anyway, this thing goes on and says, yeah, you're on the first day of the nationwide shutdown and you've just lost your jobs. "After reviewing the facts and circumstances, considering your probationary status," there you have it, "I've determined that you exercised poor judgment with an inappropriate display of political signage in your work area." I'm actually totally down with that. If your thing is that I'm super proud about like who I want to have sex with, I don't think you should probably work in the government in general. I just don't think that's necessary. There are gay people that work at the FBI that you don't know were gay. I knew people that I found out after years and years of knowing them. I worked side by side with them for years. I found out that they were either bisexual or interested in the other sex. And I had no idea because they were normal human beings like you'd expect. There was a time when we didn't actually know all this stuff about each other. For whatever it's worth, I think this is one of those funny stories where you go like, okay, well, sometimes the goose and the gander thing is bad. This is not actually weaponization. I think that they did it to everybody else, and you shouldn't be showing your politics. And the argument that a gay pride flag is in fact a political statement seems overtly true. It's either a political statement or it's a religious statement, because it does seem to be the church for some people. Both of those things are fine. And if you're in probation, you're supposed to shut your mouth and not be seen. I had this discussion with my wife really early on when I was at the academy. I said, I'm not going to be able to talk to anybody here. I'm not going to make any friends. I ended up making about 2 or 3 friends that I still talk to. I said, I can't tell anybody what I think at this place because I don't know what they think and I don't want to get fired. Not right away. My job is to shut up and just hang in there until I get out into the field office and until I get off probation. They always tell you when you're at the FBI Academy, and this is the case for a lot of jobs. Folks who don't realize this, if you're in at-will employment, basically every day you go to work is a job interview. Because at any point in time, your employer could decide that your juice is not worth the squeeze, and they'll just cut you loose. And if you're in federal employment, where you generally have a lot of protections, there is a period of time between 1 and 2 years, depending on if you were a veteran or not. And in that period of time, you were on a 1 to 2 year job interview. And that's not half bad. So why are you going out there and making waves? Why are you going out there and saying people, hey, look at me. Look what I'm all about. Shut your mouth. Your job is to learn and to keep quiet and to not get fired. You're on a job interview for a period of time. So I don't have a lot of sympathy for this. And I know that these kind of things went down. I have friends who were outstanding agents that got fired because they didn't wear a jacket with their tie, or they didn't wear a tie with their dress shirt when they went to court where they weren't even presenting. They were sitting in the back in the gallery. My buddy Joe got removed from his job the day before he got off probation after being a cop for years, for being highly competent. And then he showed up at a initial appearance where the FBI case agent will show up in like tattered jeans and a t-shirt because they just got finished arresting somebody. And he was wearing slacks and a dress shirt and a tie, but no blazer. And a supervisor that wasn't even a real supervisor, an acting supervisor, ruined him, ruined his career, fired him while he was home at sick with his kid. And they showed up at his door on the last day of probation after 2 full years minus 1 day to remove him from federal service. So I have zero sympathy for it. And I do think it's kind of funny. I think it's also funny that you've got crying over at MSNBC about it. Okay, let's start with the original first story that I had today, because I do think it's useful and I think it's fun and I think it's ridiculous. This is kind of fun. And look at what you're seeing on the screen here. For those of you that are listening, we're showing a box with wheels that has headlights that are set up to look like eyes and a name tag that says Jackson and some cute local art. And it says food delivery robots are cute. Should we trust them? First of all, I don't think it's cute. I think that's weird looking. If I saw that running down the street, I think that somebody has lost their baby. It's a baby buggy with no baby in it and no mom behind it. But this is the world that we're moving into. And when you start talking about people outsourcing their thoughts and their opinions, when we start talking about people that are not doing critical thinking, this is a great example of a story like that. Here's how silly this is. This is written by a woman whose name is Scotty. I guess that's cute. Scotty Andrew writes, its name is Courtney. Its name is Courtney. Courtney doesn't have eyes, but it has sensors everywhere. And there are 2 blinking lights in front of its boxy body to accommodate wide, moony pupils. Not sure about this writing style. It's been described as a large cooler on 4 wheels. Yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like a not as attractive Patriot cooler on wheels. Courtney, they should put air quotes around it. If you're going to name a robot, you should have to put air quotes around it, is a food delivery robot for Serve Robotics, transporting Uber Eats orders, typically when there's a mile or less between the restaurant and a customer. Courtney showed up in my Atlanta neighborhood one day, onward towards the end of June, with a dozen other wheel-bodied friends with names like DeAndre and Orion. This goes on to talk about sending food robots to you. I think actually everything that's going wrong in our society might be able to go down. I used to think that the biggest thing going wrong in America could be described by one cultural phenomenon: public storage units. The fact that we have so much crap in our lives that we have to rent out somebody else's space in their property to store crap that we don't even need to regularly see. It's so much crap that we don't even need it on a daily basis. We might not even need it on a monthly basis. So we have these storage units full of our junk because we can't get rid of garbage. That used to be my sort of stand-in for all of the problems in the United States. This was my high school and college supposition that Americans were so materialistic that we just stored our crap, that we were willing to pay rent to a complete stranger to just hold a box full of stuff that we didn't even know what was in there. And there are some reasons for, public storage. I've used it, but man, that was one of them. This is a new low, I think, in many ways, that you are so damn lazy you won't even go get your own food, and that you're willing to pay a premium. This is the same kind of people that are using this that are also crying that they can't afford a home, that $100,000 is not enough money to live on. I saw that on social media yesterday as well. People just like bitching and moaning about what their lot in life is instead of trying to like optimize it. And then there are companies that can make a profit by designing these weird cooler robots. I think it's a great stand-in. Between that and Taylor Swift dropping an album and a bunch of grown women being outside when the album is being released crying might be the two biggest indicators of today's American problems. Courtney and the bots have trouble navigating Atlanta. Because they're robots. They get confused at crosswalks. They move with speed and caution of a first-time driver, stilted and shy. Look how much personification is going on here. They suddenly speed up without warning. Their wheels look like they're made for off-roading, but they still get stuck in the cracks of a sidewalk. Most of the times I see the bots, they aren't moving at all. They're just stuck. Okay, so do people care? Do they think it's clever? Do they think it's fun? Yeah, apparently they do. People thought they were objects of curiosity. They took pictures with them. There's TikToks. They are spotted on the street for the first time. People are saying the future is now, and they're filming themselves with this nonsense. 3 months after their arrival, the novelty is worn off. They're not photo ops anymore. They're obstacles that cyclists have to swerve to avoid. Patrons of Shake Shack, which is a national partner of this company, Serve, they weave around a mess of robots that are parked in front of the restaurant as they try to make their way inside, and they have to place their orders on iPads. I don't like placing my order on iPads either. There's much an accepted part of life in my neighborhood as the obnoxious scooters that continue to litter the sidewalks. I don't like those either. I don't like modernity that much. I'm becoming a Luddite. People are always asking, when are the robots finally going to be here? Said Serve Robotics CEO Ali Kashini. If you're lucky to live in one of these cities, you'll see it today. If not, it'll probably be a couple years, but someone will have them in their environment everywhere. What could go wrong? I love that they at least covered this. This researcher from a place called Security in Context Initiatives said that someone in Silicon Valley needs to slow their roll, and they need to stop using these untested, unregulated technologies. He said that the skepticism towards technology is healthy, because when they show up, they're not just robots that are delivering your food. They're actually the eyes and ears of a company that is going to be running around with sensors, microphones, and cameras to find out what people are doing in that area. Remember, if there's a free service, then usually you are the product. How sketchy is it that we're going to put all these private industries? Everyone always worries about the government coming in to monitor them. And there's a good reason for that. And I know it more than most. I worked in the national security space, and I know what those capabilities are. But you know who puts the government to shame? Apps, robot companies, four-wheeled coolers that are running around in Atlanta for some damn reason, that have microphones to be able to sense audible danger, cameras to be able to sense visual danger and help them navigate. They're constantly driving around. Do you think they just like ditch that footage? Or do they hold on to it? Because storage is cheap, and that data is going to be worth something at some point to people. How soon is it before they start putting little Bluetooth sensors in there so it can ping your Bluetooth and find out where you've been and where you're going? Or Wi-Fi, so it's just gathering whatever pings your phones are. How many of us are dedicated enough to put our phones in a Faraday bag when we go walk around and only take them out when we need them? Probably none. I don't do it. And I'm as security conscious as most people. I'm at least aware more than most people are. It's kind of a wild time to think that they're going to send these things out there in the streets. So we've got the future robot problem. It always begins with private corporations. It always ends up like this a good idea theater. How do we solve this problem? How can we do it without bothering people? And then you realize like you're fighting the robots in the streets. I don't know. It seems like none of these people grew up watching the same shows that I did. Maybe they just didn't watch Terminator 2. Maybe they didn't watch Terminator 1 and realize that eventually these things try to come and kill us. Is that what's going on? Again, if you outsource your thinking to some tech guru, you're like, whatever Elon Musk does is amazing. Well, now I hate him because he's mad at Donald Trump. Like, if you don't think for yourself and just look at it and go, hey, what are the pros and cons? The pros are some poor kid is not doing this job. The downside is some poor kid is not doing this job. And the real downside is that some dude on a cycle is going to smoke a freaking cooler that stops randomly for no reason. And they're going to do an endo. And now we're going to end up with a guy in the emergency room who's like trying to, figure out what's going on with his broken arm. Can we just think things through a little bit? Turns out our politics can't do that. This is one of the funnier stories that I've seen. This is totally a different animal, but we're going to keep moving forward. This made me laugh because this is coming from NPR. Occasionally I just dig into NPR because I want to know what the left, like the hard left and the formerly government-funded left has to say. This is coming from All Things Considered. This is a headline that is quite great. The National Guard presence may deter crime. Oh, say more. But experts warn of the long-term costs. It's almost like the stuff that we've been saying here. What's the exit strategy? Great idea. Shut down the crime. Isn't it fun when the left has to admit that the National Guard actually does a thing that they really hated? Because for a while I was catching all these headlines saying they're not deterring crime. They're just cleaning up trash. And now they're like, well, maybe they are deterring crime, but also, won't it cost us a lot of money? Yeah, it will. Imagine if your cops in the cities you lived in, like Chicago or Memphis or Washington, D.C., actually did the job they were paid for, so we didn't have to send other people to do the job. It's the same argument, by the way, that Andrew Bailey's going to take over and Dan Bongino's going to leave. I'm not saying it's happening today, but it will happen. You know why? Because paying two people to do one person's job is not effective. And having a robot that creates other jobs might not be effective. And it might be super scary when it comes to like gathering information on you. The Trump administration expanded its anti-crime initiative aimed at Democrat-led cities. Why is it at Democrat-led cities, you wonder? They're so mean, the Republicans. Or maybe that's just where all the crime is. Criminologists are watching to see how effective the federal interventions will be. Oh, really? Yeah, because it'll be really effective. And you know what they do? They pick up trash. And they clean up the area. And it turns out when places look nice, then people feel less okay with, doing crime. It's been there forever. There's special interest in the effect of the National Guard, which don't have direct policing policies. In Washington, they were often seen stationed near tourist sites, and they were employed to pick up trash. Sometimes just having a masculine person, like a dude in a uniform that looks like he might fight you if you do something dumb or dangerous, is in fact a deterrent in and of itself. That's why people used to have beat cops. They would patrol an area. That's why my neighborhood constantly has a sheriff's deputy's vehicle. There's no sheriff deputy in it, by the way. They just park it in an area going around a blind curve. So when you come around the curve, boom, you see a marked police uniform or a police vehicle, a black and white with lights on top. And people immediately slow down because they're doing like 60 and it's a 40 and it should be a 20. Yeah, it works. It turns out like a presence patrol is sometimes effective. They actually tried that in Washington, D.C. when I was living there, but they just did it with FBI agents and those people ended up kneeling for BLM. And then they got fired. So that's also interesting. Some of the research suggests their visible presence could make a difference. They needed research to do that, folks. This is yet another reason why we should also not be outsourcing our thinking. There are people that paid other people to look into when you have tough-looking guys that are in military uniforms, are people less likely to commit crimes around them? I mean, when I say we don't hate our government enough, I don't really like it that way. I just don't like any government. And I don't like the idea that they had to pay someone to do something that any one of you could have just written up and we would have known it was true. No matter how little experience you have with the military. You'd be like, hey, if you had tough guys wearing military uniforms looking like they belong there, hanging out on a street corner, do you think there'll be as many robberies happening on that street corner or not? And you'd be like, no, there wouldn't be. So what do? They went to Jerry Ratcliffe, a professor of criminology at the University of Pennsylvania, how prestigious, who compared National Guard deployments to the United Kingdom's policing policies with support officers who wear uniforms but lack traditional policing powers. Seriously? We're going to look to the UK, who just named a female Bishop of Canterbury? Awesome. In a strong study in the UK, it's the first time the word strong in UK had been used in a sentence in quite a while, found that when they were deployed to crime hotspots, we actually saw a reduction in crime and disorder, Ratcliffe says. It's a fairly clear assumption that some kind of uniformed government presence, it doesn't have to be police, can at least on a surface level have a deterrence value. I hope they write a paper on this. I hope he gets paid a salary. I hope that they spend a bunch of time with some grad students and so on. Rationality doesn't need to be, this common sense thing. They're really onto something, but it'd be better if we could just get someone to codify it in some sort of university study. So that's the world we're living in. And that, of course, means that you got people that are pissed off about it. So here was what would have been a critical statement. This is not his best moment in so much as his energy, but here's Donald Trump saying things that sound overtly reasonable. Again, I'm more interested in the exit strategy than the actual whether or not it'll work, because obviously it'll work. And we know it'll work because studies from the UK have told us so. I'm smirking. All right, here's Donald Trump talking about what he wanted to do. This is the other day when he was at Quantico.
We haven't even started yet. Last month, I signed an executive order to provide training for quick reaction force that can help quell civil disturbances. This is going to be a big thing for the people in this room because it's the enemy from within, and we have to handle it before it gets out of control. It won't get out of control. Once you get involved at all, they all joke. They say, oh, this is not good.
It was kind of low energy. Pete Hegseth did a much better job. We'll cover his in just a second again, because there's more people that are upset about what Pete Hegseth had to say. But he's absolutely right. Yeah, it's a big deal because we do have an enemy from within. That enemy is people that don't want to abide by American law and order, which should be a really simple concept for most. It's like, you want to be in this country? You got to act like a regular citizen. You can't be an a-hole. You're allowed to have bad opinions. You're allowed to say mean things. But if you want to get violent or break the law, then someone's got to stop you. And for some reason, in quote unquote Democrat-led cities, they're not really interested in doing that. Oh, so you put a deterrent in, even if it's just a bunch of dudes that are getting paid in their National Guard capacity to stand around smoking and joking, looking like they might do something if something were to come up. That seems totally reasonable to me. All right, we're going to get into military standards because that was something that has really been tweaking me, and I've seen quite a bit of it. Before we do, let's talk about crime a little bit. How about scammers? National Guard can't stop that. You can, though. Patriot Protect is the company we use over here at the Seraphin household. It's patriot-protect.com/KYLE. It is actually scarily easy for criminals and scammers and scumbags in general to find information about you, personal information online that they can use to harm you. They can find your home address, your phone number, workplace, even your family members' names, and they can pretend to be you, or they can call you up and know enough about you that they can pretend to be real companies and get your information. Data breaches will always expose sensitive information, but people search websites and data brokers that are selling your information for clicks are actually probably just as dangerous. They actively harvest this personal information from leaks and hacks and so on. They publish all this stuff on their websites and they make them searchable on Google, and it makes you easily accessible. It's not great, especially when people can find it overseas. This exposure puts you and your loved ones at risk. You could take your name out of that pile. Join the folks over at Patriot Protect. It's like a couple bucks a month. Do the annual subscription. Use my name. I think you save 15% on there. It makes it very, very affordable. It's patriot-protect.com/KYLE. All you want to do is make yourself a little bit harder to find and a little bit less likely to be exposed. It's pennies on the dollar, like pennies at a time or less than pennies for them to buy access to your name. And if they have it, then they might use it. We're not all going to get scammed at any given time, but the idea is that it's probably more of a when and not an if you might have a scam attempt. So just don't have it. You never know what kind of phone call it's going to take when you're busy or in the car and you're just going to say yes to something you shouldn't be. Go ahead and check them out. Again, patriot-protect.com/KYLE, link in the show description. You've seen Skip on our show here before talking about literally they will buy for a few dollars. They will buy hundreds of names and they'll just come at you and they'll just ring them up until they finally get what they want. Or they'll send you a phishing text messages, things like that, until they can actually take what they need. Terrible stuff. I hate scammers. I really do, at a terrible level. This is not a scam. This is Pete Hegseth. And apparently, we're going to have to now talk about fitness standards, proposed military fitness standards comparing to existing fitness tests. What's interesting is, like so many things, if you zoom out on the timeline, you realize that the existing fitness standards are actually relatively new. I had a discussion last night with Gary Melton, who is a Green Beret, and we were talking about a couple things that it veered into the weakening and the problematic nature of putting women in combat jobs, namely lowering the standards. And what he saw in the special operations community, I saw it in the Air Force. I have friends who are Green Berets who saw this going through the TRADOC program or whatever the hell it is, the JFK Special Warfare School. They said, we keep lowering standards. We're letting more and more scumbags get into these elite units. And what's the reason? And what people found out was the reason wasn't getting weaker soldiers that were men in. That wasn't the goal. The goal was eventually to run top cover to be able to push women through. I knew guys that were in Air Force Special Operations. I knew people that were over in the Army side of it, and they were told explicitly, these women will graduate. It will happen. Not there's a standard, hold the standard, give them a fair shake, and if they graduate, great. No, they will graduate. And so that's not great. And that comes from weak leadership at the top. It comes from fat, soft bodies that are in charge of things that they probably shouldn't be. People who couldn't lead by example if they wanted to. And yeah, Pete's younger than some of these generals and some of these, senior colonels and whatnot. And that may be the case. But at the end of the day, shouldn't you look like a soldier? Shouldn't you look like a warrior? Shouldn't you look like a Marine or an airman that people can look at and go, yeah, got it. Like that person is intimidating if they stand in a uniform. They actually project the power of the United States and it has some dignity to it. Or do we get some of these scumbags that don't? So here he was addressing those generals. I want to play it again because I actually really like this piece. Then we're going to go through the fitness standards real quickly with ABC. And then I'm going to show you two people that are in significant contrast. And one of the reasons why I had a flashback to 2012 this morning.
With physical fitness and appearance. If the Secretary of War can do regular, hard PT, so can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test. And as the chairman said, yes, there is no PT test. But today, at my direction, every member of the joint force at every rank is required to take a PT test twice a year, as well as meet height and weight requirements twice a year, every year of service.
I don't even know why that's remotely controversial. I did see the women on The View that were really upset about this. I think we played this the other day. They were upset because, gosh, that's so mean. It's not nice to these very, these honorable troops. They've worked so hard. And it's like, what did you think you signed up for? Everybody has to go to some version of basic training. They go to OCS. They all get fitness standards. They're all tested. They can all lose their job if they can't keep up with it. This is the case. This should actually be the case for most federal employment. It's actually one of my biggest gripes about the federal government. There's a lot of soft-bodied people that probably shouldn't have that job, not because the fitness is a requirement of doing that job, because it's actually good for the workforce and it's good for the taxpayer, because people who are in good shape physically actually have less health problems, it turns out. So you could do it proactively. And I love the fact that he just said it's going to be a mandate that all active duty personnel will be required a workout every single day. 30 minutes a day will keep the evil, diabetes away. It's a mandate. It's supposed to be enforced by commanders. The troops will also have to take at least 2 fitness tests per year, as you heard him say. There's a general service fitness requirement that will account for a person's age. And that matters because as you get more senior, there's probably less physicality in the work you're doing. When you're 18 and you're young and dumb and tough and you think you can do everything and you can break yourself off and you can just wake up in the morning and it all grows back, like, great. That's good. When you're 40, that's maybe not the same thing. And you're leading with a little bit more intelligence. You got to be a little bit more circumspect. Maybe you're doing less impact. Maybe you're on a bike or swimming instead of doing the running all the time. But doggone it, shouldn't our troops be tough and be capable? There is going to be something I'm going to bring up to that because our military is supposed to be a threat, a spear and a sword and a shield that goes out there, scares the crap out of people that want to screw with this country. And for a long time, that was the case. And then you kind of have this question of like, is it ongoing? This is why I don't really like women in combat jobs. I'm not real crazy. I didn't like working with women in the military in general, if I'm being honest. It's not because they were women. It's because we didn't have the same reasons for being there. And I'm going to show you exactly how I know that. I had this flashback to 2012 when this Air Force staff sergeant was telling me to stay in because the job market was scary. And I told her I wasn't staying in because I wasn't going to deploy to a war zone. And that wasn't good. And that's why I showed up. I showed up to go to war and I didn't go to war. So I was done. Here's Sunny Hoskins. She's upset about it. I think we played this the other day, but it's worth seeing. Again, this is a female attitude towards things when in reality, projecting violence and capabilities on the world is kind of a male thing. There are women who can do it, no doubt about it. There are women that are capable of doing the job, but they should be able to keep up with the standard that the men around them are so they don't have to be a lag.
I'm actually really befuddled by why he did that. The optics were terrible, meaning all of our top military brass are all in one place, and we spent $6 million to get them there. That didn't make a lot of sense to me. It also didn't make a lot of sense to me that he was saying that he was going to toughen physical standards and review the anti-hazing policy by sort of implementing a hazing policy. And then also he said he was going to return to the highest male standard for combat positions because the troops were fat. Yeah. I don't understand how that was supposed to be an uplifting message for our
Women who don't understand that the military is not about uplifting. It's about grinding people into submission so they do what needs to be done because, you know, it's not really uplifting to be in life-threatening danger, it turns out. You don't need affirmations. You need to get your ass up and move. You need to do training because that's what needs to be done. And sometimes aggressive, angry motivation is highly effective, particularly for men, it turns out, who make up the majority of people that are going to go and do something really dangerous. And it also turns out it's really effective for women that are going to get along with men that can do that job. I've known some absolute stud physical fitness athlete freaks that are women. My cousins, I have some cousins that are freaks like that. They were stud water polo players. They would fight men, you know, hand to hand, and they would actually hold their ground. Their dad was a football player in college. And so it's a real thing. But the overlapping section of like women who can do and women who want to do, it's a really, really narrow window. I'm not even sure that it's worth the squeeze on that. I still consider it kind of questionable. And I say that as somebody who went to law enforcement academies and saw women in there that had no business being there. They were pushed through. They had that same attitude with like Sony Hoskins. Like, why are they not being nice to us? It's like, I don't know, maybe a bad guy who wants to get away from you is not going to be nice and he might want to kill you. Can you fight like your life depends on it? That seems really important. It seems like it to me. Here's the difference between these types of troops. This woman I'm going to show you is in the Air Force, and that's not on accident. I'm sure of it, but I'm sure there's women in the Army that behave the same way. It's really nauseating, and having this kind of person be in charge of you. And I've had a woman who was more or less exactly this. They are prideful. They are narcissistic and caring about their own appearance. Like, I don't know that it matters what you look like. As long as you are in regulations, if your hair is clean and tight, if your hair is not too long, if your facial hair is groomed the way it's supposed to be and it's shaved every morning like you ought to be, if your uniform doesn't have like little strings and stuff on it, if it's put on properly, at that point, who are you trying to impress? Are you trying to find a mate? Because this woman has a full face of makeup. What is war fighting about that? And it's like I said, it's not an accident. She's a tech sergeant in the Air Force. So here we go. She's worried about eyelash extensions. I don't even know what that is.
Okay, so apparently starting today, we're not supposed to wear lash extensions anymore. Okay. But like, how would they know? Are they gonna scan my face at the gate? Bzzzt. Ma'am, your lashes are giving unauthorized volume. We're gonna need you to blink twice and step aside. What if I was born with just naturally dramatic lashes? Y'all discriminating against genetics now? What's next? No lip gloss? No edge control? We're out here defending freedom, not auditioning for Boot Camp Barbie. It's like someone's commander woke up and said, yeah, it's the lashes. That's what's breaking unit cohesion. Spoiler alert, I can still shoot, salute, and secure the perimeter with a cat eye. It's not insubordination, it's just enhanced situational awareness. Anyways, reporting for duty. Morale high, lashes non-existent.
I hate that lady. I don't know who she is, but I hate that. I hated working for those people. I hated working for people that were that. Thank God we didn't have TikTok when I was active duty. But that flashes right back to the military training leaders that were out there. What is she like? What is she defending? She's spending all of her time putting her face on. You're going to go out there and sweat, walk around. Like, I just don't understand it. And so here's a contrast. This guy's an Army soldier. Here's the difference. Notice that woman wanted to have an appeal to authority. She's wearing a uniform. She's wearing her rank. She pulled her name tag off so she couldn't be identified. Yeah, people can totally identify you. Somebody in the service knows you. And hopefully that stops immediately. Hopefully your TikTok channel goes away because it's gross. Then you got this guy. He's like, yo, I'm in the Army. He's wearing street clothes, which is fine. And he makes an interesting comment. I haven't seen it either. I've seen a lot of Army. I've seen an awful lot of Air Force, which always kind of pisses me off. I haven't seen a whole lot coming out of the Marine Corps crying about having to shave a beard, which, by the way, I can't believe that they let people wear beards, especially some of the wild beards that I've seen. It is truly out there. In garrison, come on. This guy makes a great point. Shouldn't it be about upholding a standard? You showed up because you wanted to be a part of something. That means you surrender a part of yourself to be part of it. This makes perfect sense. Of course, there's a little bit of inter-service rivalry as well, which is what's supposed to happen.
Now, I got to be honest. I'm a proud Army soldier. Love the Army. But I've been all over social media since Hegseth gave that speech. And you know what? I've not seen one Marine, not one Marine, black, white, Asian, female, male, not one United States Marine on social media complaining. Not one. That says something, man. That says something right there. Like I said, I'm proud to have been in the Army, but bro, you got to take your hats off to the Marine Corps, because in the Marine Corps, the standard is tradition. I mean, these fools ain't changed the uniform since like over 100 years. I don't expect anything less from a Marine, man. Hey, give it up for yourself. Give it up to the Corps, man. Yeah, we come out and we help y'all. You know, we lead the charge sometime, man. We let y'all take second place sometimes, but hey, give respect due where respect is due, man. Shout out to the Corps.
And you guys know, if you guys know, especially if you served in other branches and you had that were like, you know, prior Marine Corps service, they came into your branch, they always brings like a different level of motivation. They're motarded, but I love it. Like that's what I thought the military was supposed to be about. Anyway, I think that guy's got a good message. And I haven't seen it. I haven't seen Marines crying about it. It's like, oh, the standard, it's changed. It's going to be more difficult. Good. Hoorah. Right? That's what they say. All right. Let's take a quick break here. You may hear something from Spotify. If you guys are listening on the audio platform, you may hear a little ad from them. It's a good reminder while you're watching on Rumble, if you're watching on YouTube, you're watching on X, first of all, you can always check us out on Spotify at KyleSerafinshow.com, but also like the videos that you're seeing. Make sure you do. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. We are this far. I think we're like a few subscribers away from 14,000 over on YouTube, which is cool. Again, KyleSerafinshow.com. If you ever have problems with any of the issues of any of the other platforms, check them out on Spotify. I upload it manually. And you can find us on locals at KyleSerafin.com, where we always post all the links to everything we do. Again, quick little reminder. Like, share, the subscribe button. Those are all available to you, and we appreciate you guys doing so. Let's talk about more stuff. This is why you need a fit and capable military service, it turns out. We might have conflicts. We might need to get after stuff. Trump is right about this one, I think. He's determined that the United States is in an armed conflict with cartels. You can tell that they didn't like this because this is on NBC News. In recent weeks, the United States military has struck at least 3 boats from Venezuela, allegedly carrying narco traffickers and drugs that could threaten Americans. Trump said, we are living through that moment of clear and present danger where the president is saying, you know what? We're going to bomb the crap out of cartel boats. And again, I'm not super excited about us using that tool in this way, but I'm also not crazy about drugs showing up. I think we got 2 problems happening at once. One, yeah, if you can stem the supply, if you can give our troops something to do and give them a focus and a mission set, that's not terrible. And if it's going after drug dealers, you won't hear me crying about that. Rand Paul said the same thing. I feel the same way. A second piece of it, though, which is not wrong, is that we've really got to fix the supply or the demand side that goes on in this country. Because we got a lot of people that are not paying attention. Maybe they're too interested in eyeliner and lip gloss. Maybe they're interested in getting their food from Uber Eats by a robot. And they want to go and get fentanyl and just zone out or walk around like a zombie. We have a lot less people doing critical thinking and trying to take care of themselves. And maybe that's because they gave up. And we're going to cover that in a second here, that there's some job market issues. I get all those things. But there's something about just evolving. Adapting and overcome is what they tell you in the military when you're going through. Adapt and overcome. Step up. Life sucks. Embrace the suck. Just do it, right? There's all these motivational things out there that just say, you know what? Do it anyway. Oh, life's hard? Just go do it anyway. Who cares? Nobody's crying. Nobody's coming to save you. And that is something that people who have gone through a military background, who've gone through that training, they realize, like, nobody cares. Cry more, don't cry, doesn't matter. Get to work. Trump's doing this thing. It says the president has determined that the cartels are a non-state armed group, designated them as foreign terrorist organizations, and has determined that their actions constitute an armed attack against the United States. Look, we've seen some of the cartel troops that are hanging out in, and I'll call them troops, they've got 50 cals, they've got mounted vehicles and technicals and stuff like that. Like, they're armed up like any other insurgency. In response, based upon the cumulative effects of these hostile acts against citizens and interests in the United States, friendly and foreign nations, the president has determined that the United States is in a non-international armed conflict with designated terrorist organizations. It puts these people on the same list as Al-Qaeda and on the Islamic State. Hence, you're going to start seeing some of these drone attacks. I don't know. Maybe we need a mission. Maybe we just need to pick a fight with somebody because we like doing that sometimes. So this story also kind of piqued my interest. CNN had very little for news at the front of their website today, but they did have this. Venezuela said it detected 5 U.S. quote-unquote combat planes flying 75 kilometers from its coast in what it calls a provocation. On Thursday, it said it detected 5 U.S. fighter jets. I guess those are what they call combat planes. Near the coast in the Caribbean, the defense minister, Vladimir Padrino, described the incident as a provocation by the United States that posed a threat to their national security. Their combat aircraft that U.S. imperialism has dared to approach the Venezuelan coast. Someone needs to tell Venezuela that the United States can do whatever the hell they want near their coast. Do you know how I know? I'm not trying to be a jerk, but here's the facts. This is the United States number of military aircraft as of 2025 and Venezuela's number of military aircraft. All right? Total United States aircrafts for our military, 13,000 to 14,500. The number is somewhere in like a 1,500 variance. The rounding error that we have in the number of aircrafts is something like almost 10x. It's 7x the total of the aircraft that Venezuela has in totality. We've got about 1,800 fighter jets. They apparently have 5 F-16s, but they're not sure if they're operational. They have 22 Soviet airplanes, and 13 of them might be operational. So it sounds like they may have as many as, 12 to 15 operational fighter craft. We have 1,800. This is not like we can do whatever we want. We can fly around there. And I kind of do get a kick out of that stuff. That walk softly and carry a big stiff attitude, that sort of American exceptionalism, and saying in our own hemisphere, you're in our hemisphere. And you're sending drug boats. Yeah, does it look like we're picking a fight? It does. But at the end of the day, these numbers mean that it's not a fight that matters. This is like a grown adult walking down the street and a 10-year-old bully like mad at him. He's headbutt him, push him, get out of the way, get off the thing. All right. We talked about needing purpose. We talked about people who need to suck it up, maybe. This may be some of the issues that are going on. This leads into the polling about Trump. Again, a lot of people will get behind, if Trump said it, it's good. I think we can play a mixed bag on this. But this one is fun for me because it's going to lead to polling on Trump is down, but nobody wants to change their choice. That just kind of tells you how bad the Democrat pitch has been. And we're going to get into the shutdown as we kind of wrap up with that. We'll play that too. As hiring slows down, more Americans are job hunting for longer periods of time, for months, and it's going to take a small miracle is what they say. This is CBS Money Watch talking about this. It goes on and gives a story about a woman who lost her job in the tech industry. Maybe she should learn how to repair coolers on wheels. I don't know. She said she wasn't worried about lining up a new position in November of 2024. She's a Washington State resident of 11 years of managing experience of network infrastructure and projects, specialized roles that involves equipping buildings with internet access, cameras, and Wi-Fi systems. Maybe you can equip these robot servers that serve Uber Eats to lazy people that don't go get their food. The last time I had to job search, I found something pretty easily, she said. Turns out the older you get, the harder that gets. And actually, the more skilled you get, the more sort of niche you have when it comes to finding a new job. My buddy Steve Friend found that out as well. The 37-year-old is still without a job almost a year later. She's applied to hundreds of jobs and positions for which she's even overqualified, but to no avail. This is a common thing that I'm starting to hear. That's not a great situation. And I do think Trump sort of looking over at India and seeing how many people we're trying to bring in to take on these things. The number of work visas we're bringing might be an issue. She says, the more I looked, the more I wasn't getting responses. Even if I did get an interview, I only made it through the first round or two. Things got really real when my unemployment ran out. That's tough. I can empathize with that. I was out of work for 14 months or unpaid with a job that didn't pay me for 14 months. She's in the growing ranks of Americans who've been jobless for more than 6 months. And long-term unemployment numbers is rising to 1.9 million in August, according to government data. Now you're seeing a picture of Jerome Powell on the screen because apparently because of our shutdown, even though we have information about what's going on, even though there's plenty of anecdotal stuff, they have to have government numbers and U.S. government jobs reports to be able to decide whether or not they're going to change things in the interest rates. Federal Reserve officers may have to determine the next steps for interest rates without access to the Bureau of Labor Statistics September employment data. Well, I think the data's been there for quite a while. It's really interesting that they keep trying to act like they're going to pivot and manage this economy. I don't like the Fed any more than you guys do. I don't like the fact that our money supply continues to grow. I don't like the fact that inflation, that a tolerable amount of inflation is 2%, which means we lose 2% of our savings every single year because the value actually goes down. So you have to actually have it invested at a rate higher than that just to break even. I don't like any of that. Until Congress approves funding, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, with its more than 2,000 employees, will remain furloughed, unable to release reports. This just tells you so much about how our government runs things. It tells you about how inefficient. We need 2,000 people to work to get numbers that CBS was able to pull and get, decent data on the folks that are out there applying. Like every single state compiles unemployment numbers. Why does it take 2,000 people in the federal government? And how many of them are dragging on our healthcare system because they're not healthy? So all that goes to this piece about frustration, government shutdown, so on and so forth. We're going to kind of wrap up with this idea. Young Trump voters are frustrated with him on the economy and in immigration, say new focus groups. That's fun. That's coming from NBC. That's the same source that said that there's an issue with the Fed. But the funny thing is the subheadline is, of the 14 participants, that's exactly how big their survey was, 14 in their focus group. They voiced criticism of Donald Trump's deportation and his economic policies, but nearly all of them said they wouldn't change their choices. A poll finds that Americans blame Trump and the GOP shutdowns more than Democrats. Can I make a suggestion to our Democrat friends? And I will call them friends. Can we just say, own the shutdown? Own it. We'll say that we don't like government. We're proving to you that it's not that important. It's not that efficient, that there are kids in Los Angeles who think it's normal on a job interview to put up their gay pride flag and get fired from the FBI. Can we just say that the government is shut down on purpose and we don't like it and you should be thankful for it? That would be a great thing. We're sick of finding out that there's women out there doing their eyelashes instead of doing their job in the military. We're just going to own it. And Democrats are so scared of this idea of like they want to push it on. I think you should just embrace it. They're out saying ridiculous things. And even kids that are being interviewed, they don't like it. They go, nah, not it. We still would make the same choice. Why would they make the same choice? Because the last person that they put up to run this country was Joe Biden. And after that, they thought Kamala Harris was a good idea. Here's Madeline Dean, who actually caught Kash Patel, and I think was probably a perjury statement during her questioning. But here she is. She's made multiple claims that Donald Trump is unwell. How do you look anyone in the face? This is why you have no credibility with like anyone that's sentient. Because you guys made an argument that Joe Biden was fine. I'm going to show you this back to back. She's going to argue Trump is slow and old and not well. And then I'm going to show you what she said about Joe Biden. This is why they have zero credibility. This is a great opportunity to say we own the federal shutdown. You
just called the president unwell again. What do you mean by that?
Well, he's aging, aren't we all? I think we can very much notice that. He's a different man than he was in his first term. He's slower. He's a little more lethargic, but much.
He's slower. He's a little lethargic. He's not really great. Let's talk about your former guy. This is the guy that used to run the country, allegedly.
I think I traveled with the president yesterday in Pennsylvania to a fantastic church in Mount Airy with a service that lifted us all right out of our seats. And the president was well-spirited. He worked from a notebook. I know the teleprompter argument goes on. He worked nicely from a notebook. We also were together in front of folks who were organizers on the campaign side and labor, where the president spoke without any notes, and he was terrific. He's
the president of the United States, and he was able to speak without notes. Donald Trump can stand up in front of a microphone and speak for 2 hours without any notes at all. He just does it all the time. And I'm not really interested in hearing it. He's not my rabbi, so I won't be the listener to that. But he can do it. And he won't stumble. He'll go through all kinds of wild stuff. He'll say some strange things. He'll do what Donald Trump does. Some of it will be super funny. Some of it will probably be a bad look. He's not going to fall over when the wind blows. He's not going to fall over walking up the stairs. And he doesn't get tripped by a sandbag and end his whole life. He doesn't sit on a bicycle or even pretend that he likes bicycles and fall off them while licking ice cream cones, right? That's just not who he is. So to make these claims is pretty wild. And again, I think it's why the credibility is so shot. Because people are like, what are you playing at, lady? 2 days into the latest federal shutdown, Americans are already focusing their frustrations on Capitol Hill over the disarray, with Trump and the Republicans getting more of the blame. Again, own it. Roughly 47% of Americans say Donald Trump and the GOP are responsible for the shutdown, says a Washington Post poll. That's totally unbiased, Washington Post. The poll respondents said that the president and his party were responsible for the shutdown for refusing to compromise while having full control over Congress and his actions. Okay. Yeah, but what are we talking about compromising on? We're talking about compromising on something that the Republicans are doing a great job saying. But at the same time, they should say, yeah, we don't want a federal government. We're not going to fund it because it does illogical things like this.
Everyone deserves health care.
Even illegals?
Every single person in the world deserves
Just for the record, as a candidate, you're for illegal aliens getting Medicaid.
I think everyone in the world deserves
That's a
health
yes.
care.
That's a yes.
It's this idea that we think that the federal government is supposed to do things that it's not. It's like, okay, look, here's the deal. Here's the problem with the difference between Democrats and Republicans. They don't actually do this, by the way, because I think Republicans and Democrats are very similar. But imagine if they actually made the conservative argument, which said, the federal government does more things than it's supposed to. There is no reason for it to do the things that it does. And therefore, we are not interested in starting it. And we're actually going to make cuts. We're not going to do a clean CR. What if they actually came back and said, we're going to just start funding, turning on the switches one at a time? They're all turned off, allegedly, even though everyone's showing up to work. They're all turned off. So we are going to fund things one bit at a time. And how do we know that they were super interested in doing things the government's not supposed to do, like funding non-citizens that have no right to be here, people who broke our immigration laws and are here? Because they keep telling you. Here's Gavin Newsom. This is a side-by-side of him in 2022, 2023, and 2025. The message has not changed, except when it makes them look bad. Suddenly they start running from their own words, and they all seem to forget that we have the internet. And apparently we also have robots that are sensors. Like maybe there's a Uber Eats robot that's running around recording Gavin Newsom. I'm okay with that one.
Campaign on universal health care. We're delivering that. We are implementing our ideals. We are manifesting this principle, this fundamental notion that so many of us have been preaching for years and years and years. Universal health care for all, regardless of pre-existing condition, regardless of the ability to pay, and regardless of your immigration status. If you care not just about values and principles of morality, but if your only values and principles are advanced through economics, then that alone should be an argument in favor of universal health care, a pathway and a framework for 1.1 million undocumented residents in the state of California to avail themselves to high quality, comprehensive Medi-Cal care, long-term, short-term, preventative, as well as in-home support service care and coverage.
Now, Newsom says California is facing a $12 billion deficit. Governor is proposing freezing enrollment in state-funded health care for undocumented immigrants.
You know, when
No, we're not really for undocumented aliens. We don't want illegal aliens and criminals to be able to get access to it, but we totally do. How do we know? Because the last person you ran, the reason why no one regrets their Donald Trump vote, even if he's not doing the best job, is because this was the alternative.
must be addressed.
The bill also says, quote, every individual who is a resident of the United States is entitled to benefits for health care services under this act. Not every individual who's a citizen, but every individual who's a resident. So you support giving universal health care, Medicare for all, to people who are in this country illegally?
Let me just be very clear about this. I am opposed to any policy that would deny in our country any human being from access to public safety, public education, or public health, period.
Public safety, public health. Huh. All right. Well, let's find out what's been affected by government shutdowns. NPR comes to the rescue here with this update, letting us know that the federal government is shut down after lawmakers in Congress failed to reach an agreement on how to extend the funding, and the lawmakers will continue to go back and forth. The impact of the shutdown is beginning to be felt across the country. Please put it in the comments below. What are the things that you are experiencing that have caused you to know that the government is shut down at the national level? Again, own it. It'd be great. If you're flying soon, you'll find out that, in fact, there is no change. Air traffic controllers and most of the TSA are considered essential workers, and they have to stay on the job, even if it means working without pay while the rest of the federal government shuts down. Guess what? That's part of it told right up front, that if they don't fund it, that you still have to show up to work if you want to maintain that job because you're in a national security position and it's required. That was part of the conditions of employment. You signed up for that voluntarily. You don't have to. You can always walk away. You can quit at any time, it turns out, if you so choose. Federal air traffic controllers helped end the last government shutdown and could end this one as well. They're encouraging with a thing that is illegal that they're not allowed to do, but they could do a slight increase in a sick leave, aka a sick out, because they can't do strikes. If this drags on, travelers could see more sick outs of key personnel as workers show their anger over missing paychecks, which, by the way, have not happened yet. Yeah, it turns out. And lastly, if you're traveling internationally in the new year, you might need to build more of a time frame in for passport renewals, because passport agencies will remain open, but they might take longer. Shocking. The federal government is going to go slow on documents and paperwork. Nobody will believe it. You're still going to get your mail because the U.S. Postal Service keeps going on. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security benefits are not impacted. Social Security, the VA, and other benefits will continue. There could be some delay in services such as processing applications, but it will continue. But the real problem is a thing that the government is really, really supposed to do. Our federal government may have trouble delivering SNAP and WIC. It may have a hard time providing nutrition for millions of new parents who are at risk. So that should tell you exactly what the Republicans ought to stand on. When the federal government, the single biggest, most powerful, largest hammer that we have in this entire nation, is responsible for the individual feeding of families that exist in your community, can we not just talk about like a serious, serious problem? Are we not using the absolute wrong tool to do something? And all of this has to do with people falling apart in their communities and wanting to outsource it. They say, hey, I don't want to do the work here locally. I don't want to have my own church, my own community, my own friend group, my neighborhood, whatever, watch. We don't want to handle that. We can outsource that to the city. The city says, well, we can't do this either. We can't look after our own people here. We're going to look it out to the state. The state's got more money. And the state says, well, what if we could get federal funding? So suddenly you have the worst possible tool. The argument I always make. Government is the worst solution to every problem, including when it's the only solution. And we can also add a little sort of caveat to that, or a sort of a clarification on top of it, which is to say the government that is further from you is even worse of a problem than the government that is closer to you. At the end of the day, this shouldn't even be a government problem at all. Like, private charity should be able to handle that. Guess what? When you talk about what SNAP and WIC is, we give a bunch of money out of all of our paychecks that go into these things. And where do they go? They go into a government agency that pays the same government that thinks it's reasonable to have 2,000 people working to tell us how many people don't work in America. Is that not completely asinine and illogical? When your job is to determine how many people work in this country, there's 2,000 of them. I can't fathom that. I have no idea how many work for SNAP. We should do some research on this. SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. I would love to know how many people work in that agency to administrate giving out our money in charity when churches do it for free. Every church I've ever been to has a St. Vincent de Paul Society. They'll have a food for like the food pantry for people that are having a rough time. And now what we're going to find out is that government employees are living paycheck to paycheck. By the way, that's part of the story that was in here too. The only big change you're going to see, according to government shutdowns, if you listen to NPR, is that there will be missed paychecks and lost jobs by federal workers. That's it. The Congressional Budget Office roughly estimates that 750,000 federal employees will be furloughed each day of the shutdown. There are 750,000 American workers for this government that are not essential to operations of our government. That is crazy. And that should be why Republicans own it. They're like, all we're doing is pointing out that there are 750,000 people that get a government paycheck that actually don't provide a service that's essential to the American experience. Super easy to get behind that one. In addition, these people may also force mass layoffs, known as a reduction in force or a RIF, because when the government shut down, that means that the agency is not funded, which means that there's actually no job there and they can just eliminate the position. So there's nothing to fund afterwards. I'm 100% behind that too. Yeah, you'd flood a bunch of people in, but wouldn't it be nice if you didn't have the federal government stepping into places it didn't go? They quote a woman here. I don't know how they found this woman, so I'm not trying to pick on her specifically, but I did find this lady's name in the story. Her name is Elizabeth Riley. She's a USDA employee who went to Capitol Hill to show her support for Democrats holding firm on a budget showdown. Remember, Democrats who are trying to add illegal aliens in for healthcare. And you just heard it multiple times from the former presidential candidate, from the governor of California, which does it the most, from a lady who's running for office in the state level. On CNN, they're happy to say it. She says, we've been under attack for 9 months as federal workers, and it's just another day at work, even though we are not working. A lot of my colleagues are going to struggle missing a paycheck, but a lot of us feel that they need to hold the line. Why the hell are you out talking politics? And why are you struggling if you get a government paycheck that pays you every freaking 2 weeks without fail, except when they don't fund it? How many of you all have lived in jobs where your paycheck varies on the number of hours you worked and what happens? And like sometimes your company doesn't have money to pay you because you work in a small group. That's real. That happens in this place. Our income fluctuates month to month. That's just how it goes. That's the world when you live on your own. Here's this lady, Elizabeth Riley. This is her. I looked her up. Her. She has a LinkedIn, which is also interesting. She's an international trade specialist at USDA. She seems very accomplished. She's been working there for over 10 years. Before that, she was in the Peace Corps. She was an overseas staff training coordinator, and she was a volunteer for 2 years in the Peace Corps. So thanks for your service there. She was a grad student and a teaching assistant at Virginia Tech. Just scrolling down here. Here's the thing that I think is most interesting, because this actually is real. She's the co-owner and co-manager of Bel Air Farms, which she's been doing for almost 15 years. It's a diversified family farm of over 40 head of high-quality sheep, goats with balanced rations and good breeding decisions, mitigated a variety of health concerns. That sounds super cool. That sounds like a real useful thing. I hope she goes back to doing that. And she's got a master's degree in animal and poultry science. I didn't know that was a thing, but it doesn't sound like she should be working for our government. It sounds like she should be running a food program out of a farm. She'd probably be happier, too, and she wouldn't have to live in D.C. if she's got a farm that she's part co-owner and co-manager of in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. I don't know where that is, but it sounds nice. That sounds amazing. That sounds way better than being a, she, her international trade specialist at the USDA. I'm just saying. This woman's got opportunities. Not a lot of government employees actually have family farms that they could go out and work on too instead. So that's why they're crying about it. And she's out there protesting. Sounds like a real privileged position to be in. Good for her. I wouldn't be right if we didn't scold you a little bit. Let's go into the weekend with a scolding, and then we'll get out on a better note. Here's Elizabeth Warren letting you know she's going to scold you. Don't lie and say what this is about, even this is what it's about. Angry 70-something-year-old white lady who is representing Massachusetts, which is not America, is mad if you try to say a lie. She will correct you on national television.
You know, Republicans say what you're really fighting for is taxpayer dollars for, as they put it, illegal aliens. I know that's not strictly true, but there is a provision.
Excuse me, not strictly true.
It's not true directly, but
flat-out lie. It is a flat-out lie.
The way that they frame it.
There is nothing in Medicare that permits one undocumented immigrant to get $1 of assistance.
Senator,
I haven't heard anybody in my party saying that illegal immigrants should get access to the health insurance marketplace.
I'm so glad you said that. Actually, I have some tape of your Democratic Party members saying this on the debate stage. So they've all said it. Let's play the clip.
A lot of you have been talking tonight about these government health care plans that you've proposed in one form or another. This is a show of hands question, and hold them up for a moment so people can see. Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
Senator, that's literally every member of your party, from moderate to more progressive, that have said that in the past.
Oops. Let's just go what they really mean to say. If we don't fund the government, then people will die.
People need kidneys, it's sad but decreed, yet the senator's hoarding one more than she needs. I offer this bill and I hope you'll vote aye, unless of course you just want people to die. Traffic deaths have many crying with fear. Over 30,000 people are dying each year. This modest change I propose must be applied, unless of course you just want people to die. Alcohol deaths are exceeding comparisons. Black people, white people, Native Americans. We need to ban alcohol. It can't be denied, unless of course you just want people to die. Crossing the street is incredibly tough. People look left and right, but rarely look up. My bill would mandate that.
Right? Just saying. And then the last thing that I saw that was kind of fun today was that the Department of Education found out, in a pretty partisan move, that in addition to covering the websites, which we talked about it the other day, if you go to any of the major department websites, they all have some sort of partisan banner that says, Democrats shut down the government, and so therefore we're not here. Apparently, they've actually added it to the email signatures for people's out of office. And they're like, talking about whether or not it's a Hatch Act violation. I think at this point we can realize that our government is partisan, that the people who work in the government overwhelmingly are partisan, that the monies that they give in donations are very much partisan, and they're allowed to be partisan. They're just not supposed to bring it to work with them. But since they do, and it does feel like kind of a tit for tat, it's not the America I want to live in, but it is the America we do live in. So for all the people that are cheering it on, I think it's a short-lived fun. I think you should do some critical thinking and just make it a decision on a case-by-case basis. Don't let someone else do your thinking for you. There are things that are funny. Like I said, I don't know why I think this is so funny, but I do think it's funny that putting up a gay pride got you fired. That seems like it's about time. How many of us would have gotten kicked? I mean, they actually cited the fact that I had a picture of Donald Trump riding on a tank with a golden bazooka. That was something that was cited in my OPR investigation. And the fact that I had Ronald Reagan riding on a damn velociraptor, which were both historical figures at the time, and they were cartoons. So if that was good enough to mention in my suspension forever, I think it's fine that a gay pride flag shows up. It's just also just not the America that we should be living in. Found this guy to be really interesting. I'm going to kind of end with some thoughts here, and then I'm going to give you something uplifting because that's the way we do it here. But first, I catch these videos every once in a while on my feed. People who are just saying snarky, true statements that make us wonder. One of the things that really caught me in this particular video is he says, how is it that Congress can't balance a budget, but they always seem to come out millionaires? That kind of hit me extra.
It's funny how Congress, who doesn't know how to balance a budget, knows how to make themselves millionaires. Do you really think handing over your gun ends gun violence? That's like chopping off your own dick to stop rape. NFL stadiums have walls, and fans that haven't paid for a ticket aren't allowed in. Period. Doesn't matter if you've traveled thousands of miles, or if you have a little kid with you, or if you cry outside the gate, they still won't let you in. Fascinating concept. Why is it when a liberal expresses their opinion, it's freedom of speech, but when a conservative expresses their opinion, it's intolerant hate speech?
It is intolerant. We're so intolerant.
Ask not why the children shouldn't see drag queens. Ask why drag queens crave an audience of children.
So there's more of that, and you guys have probably seen these as well, but there's some real good questions, and a lot of these questions are exactly the reason why the 2024 election went the way that it did, and why kids are looking at it going, yeah, this is not perfect, and our job market's not amazing, and we've got some real problems. But would you want Kamala Harris running anything? Would you want Joe Biden hanging out there? I don't think so. I think there will be a backswing. I was talking to my buddy Sean Witzman, who we're going to have on the program at some point in the near future. And I mentioned to him, I was like, I don't think this experiment goes on for all that much longer. But I don't think that America, when it evolves into whatever the next thing is going to be totally catastrophic. I just can't. Because I look out in my neighborhood, I see that our quote unquote federal government is shut down. And what I notice is the streetlights come on and the trash gets picked up and my neighbors continue to mow their lawns and they edge them. And sometimes they even edge my part of the lawn. And they park their cars where they're supposed to, and they fill up their gas tanks, and they pay their taxes, and they clean their windows, and they make sure that the packages are delivered, and all the things that are normally happening that have nothing to do with the federal government continue on. And I think they would continue on. We are in a unique scenario right now where if all of the federal trappings fell away, unlike what happened in the 1790s and the early 1800s, where America was on the edge of being invaded again by the country that we broke away from, right? We had a war of 1812 where England came in and tried to take us back. Nobody's going to come mess with America right now. Nobody's going to come screw with us. We can go fly jets off the coast of Venezuela and nothing's going to happen. We have 1,400 aircraft. We got 1,800 fighter jets and 1,000 attack helicopters and 900 attack aircraft, non-specific, whatever the hell that is. We have thousands upon thousands upon thousands more of just air power. So no one's going to come do the things that they could have done. And if we were to break that thing up into 10 or 12 different regional powers where the United States was just factionalized like an article of confederation kind of America, it still wouldn't matter. We'd still have more than most other militaries that are out there. And certainly people in our hemisphere. Wouldn't it be nice if we had our states actually run things again? I don't know. I just like to see a devolution of power back to where it belongs. And that means that I can't be a MAGA guy. And it means that I can't follow anybody as my digital rabbi. I'm not going to be a disciple of any politician that's out there. I don't like politicians to begin with. I don't like politics even. I had a conversation with my attorneys that are going to be dealing with this nonsensical lawsuit. And he was like, I just can't wait for politics to get back to normal. It's not happening. The only thing that's going to happen is we're going to get a new normal. That's my take on it. And when it is a new normal, I hope that I don't have to talk about politics as much. We can talk about a lot more fun things. So let me talk about things that I think are really important, because this morning, the most important things that happened to me was I had a 2-year-old who is absolutely shockingly brilliant for a 2-year-old. She's 25 months old. She's saying things like, may I be excused? She's giving me all kinds of little treatises on her thoughts. She comes up and she tells everyone that she loves them. And one day she'll be the same as her older sisters, who are incredibly thoughtful and really, really insightful little people, because I talk to them like grown-ups. And so I saw this video the other day. I showed it to my wife and it made her feel better. And maybe this is what's going on in your families. This might be the answer to it all. Don't try to compare with the others. Don't try to figure out whether they're getting Uber Eats or how fast it was delivered or whether or not you got a robot or a person delivering your food. Maybe just get your own food. But I think this guy, he's got it right. There are levels of optimization for your family. And the highest levels of optimization are, what are we doing? Where do we want to go? And how are we going to get there? Big concepts, motivation, mentorship, teaching kids to think critically and ask questions and not blindly follow anything instead of keeping up with what your neighbors are doing and trying to, like, I don't know, fight for little scraps and crumbs.
Number one thing I'm seeing in successful families is the way that they talk in private. The worst families are just comparing all the time. Their conversations have to do with what the other parents are saying, what the other kids are doing, where their kids match up. This family looks this way. This family's going on that trip. This family's buying this camp. This family's doing that extracurricular thing. Oh, well, they have that tutor. We should get this one. Now, could you believe what those parents did with their They're just gossiping to each other. Gossip is like the lowest form of a successful marriage. The greatest families I see, they actually are talking about ideas. The middle families, they're talking schedule all the time. We got to get this, we got to get that. How do we become efficient? Where we can go? They're talking about the grocery list. They're talking about the chores. But the greatest families I see are focusing intently on the vision of where their family's headed and the right next moves to help their children and teenagers grow the fastest. They're talking about ideas. They're talking about coaching. They're talking about mentorship. They're talking about proactive things in their home to help their children develop the best way. They're not comparing to other people. They're not trying to keep up with the Joneses. They're not trying to get all the grocery lists and chores done. They're focusing on the future vision, where their kids are headed and where their family looks in 10 years.
That's it. Maybe you can do some more of that this weekend. I know I'm going to go do it. I'm going to be taking my little kiddos in a secondhand bike trailer that we got. Check us out over on Spotify if you guys are looking for a replay of the show, KyleSerafinshow.com. Find us on Locals if you guys want to see all the articles that we use or you want to support us financially. It's KyleSerafin.com. If you're watching over on Rumble, if you're watching on YouTube, like, share it with somebody there if you like to. Subscribe to the channels. Let's boost over 14,000. I think we'll be over the weekend, so we'll be talking about that on Monday. God bless all of you. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I'm going to remix in the next little hour here or two. I'm going to remix some stories of people that have stood up and done the right thing because I want to retouch the story of Amy Nelson. So you guys who are new to the channel, who have never heard it, you're going to get a repackaged version of an interview we did because I want to tell the backstory before I bring her on very soon to do the current story. So look for that popping out again on Saturday and on Sunday on the channel at 1 p.m. Sunday, it'll go live. And I'll see you guys after the weekend. God bless you. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.